Captain Elias Drake sat in the cockpit of his ship, the Starhawk, as it drifted through the quiet void of the Andromeda expanse. Stars stretched infinitely in every direction, pinpricks of light against the darkness. He had always loved the solitude of space, the way it forced a person to rely only on themselves. It was peaceful, yet always held the hint of danger. He adjusted the controls, running routine scans across the nearby sectors. Space was vast, unpredictable, and sometimes unforgiving, but for Elias it was home. His eyes flicked over the holographic displays, nothing unusual, just the hum of distant stars and the faint echo of cosmic radiation. He exhaled, leaning back in his chair. The Starhawk was a nimble ship, designed for exploration and speed rather than combat, but it had always served him well. His latest mission was simple: chart uncharted sectors and gather data on potential habitable planets. But space rarely stayed simple for long. A sudden alert blinked on the console, breaking the calm. Elias frowned. It wasn't a typical distress signal. The pattern was irregular, almost like a code, faint but persistent. He leaned closer, running a filter. The signal came from a planet in a nearby system, one that had not appeared in any of the databases. Curiosity sparked in his chest. He was no stranger to danger, and the idea of discovering something new always excited him. He plotted a course. As the Starhawk entered orbit, Elias' scanners revealed a planet unlike any he had seen. Towering structures, massive and elegant, rose from the surface. Their design was alien but somehow familiar in symmetry, as if shaped by a civilization that valued both strength and beauty. Energy readings were off the charts, indicating advanced technology. He couldn't help but feel small, a single human among the vast wonders of the universe. A landing pad appeared before him, glowing faintly. Without hesitation, Elias guided the ship down, the engines humming as they adjusted to the planet's atmosphere. The moment the Starhawk touched the surface, he felt the weight of the place. It wasn't just the gravity. It was the presence, an invisible force that made his heart quicken and his mind alert. He switched off the engines and stepped out, his boots crunching on a crystalline surface. The ground sparkled under the strange sunlight, refracting in thousands of colors. From the edge of the landing site, figures began to emerge. They were tall, regal, and moved with a grace that spoke of strength and authority. At the center walked a figure that made Elias' breath catch. She was taller than any human, her skin shimmered faintly like starlight, and her eyes held the weight of galaxies. She wore a crown that seemed to float above her head and robes that flowed like liquid metal. Elias felt an immediate mix of awe and fear. He had heard legends of the Zarinthian Empire, but he had never believed he would encounter one of its rulers. "Captain Elias Drake," the figure said, her voice resonating in the air, smooth and commanding. "We have been expecting you." "I am Queen Lysera," she continued, her gaze unwavering, "and I have chosen you as my mate." Yet the authority in her tone left no room for doubt. I think there's been a mistake," Elias said cautiously. "I don't even. You will understand in time." He was guided by attendants into the palace, a structure that seemed to pulse with life. Every surface shimmered, every corner held a subtle glow, and the corridors twisted in ways that challenged the mind. It was as if the architecture itself was alive, responsive to the presence of those within. The attendants spoke in a language he did not understand, but their gestures were precise, polite, and respectful. Finally, he was brought to a grand hall. Lysera stood at its center, waiting. The walls were transparent in places, revealing vistas of swirling nebulae and distant suns. Elias felt the vastness of the universe pressing in from all sides. "Captain," Lysera said, her voice softer now, yet still commanding attention. "You may feel overwhelmed. That is natural, but your presence here is no accident. You possess qualities that even we of the Zarinthian Empire cannot replicate. Courage, ingenuity, and an unyielding spirit. These are rare. Among the stars, such qualities are invaluable." Lysera motioned toward a holographic display that sprang to life in the center of the hall. Images of star systems, battles, and massive cosmic phenomena rotated in the air. "The galaxy is not as peaceful as it seems. Threats loom, forces beyond comprehension. I have united my people against them, but there are gaps, weaknesses. You, Elias, are part of the solution. How can I, a human, possibly help someone like you? You will find your place, and in time, you will understand why I chose you." He had faced danger before, but never like this. He had been on hostile planets, evaded pirates, survived extreme conditions, but the idea of political intrigue and assassination attempts in an alien empire was new. He realized quickly that his life, once quiet and solitary, had become intertwined with forces far beyond him. Lysera led him through hidden corridors, past guards who moved with silent precision. She explained that certain factions within her empire, jealous of her authority and suspicious of outsiders, might attempt to capture or harm him. Elias could barely process it. His ordinary life as a starship captain had ended the moment he set foot on this planet. Now he was a key figure in interstellar politics, and his every move would be watched. They reached a secure chamber, its walls glowing faintly with protective energy. Lysera turned to him, her eyes locking on his. "You must rest, learn, observe. Tomorrow your journey truly begins. Do not underestimate what lies ahead. You are part of something greater than yourself. The galaxy may depend on your choices." He looked around the chamber one last time before closing his eyes, realizing that for the first time in his life, the universe had demanded more from him than he had ever imagined. Outside, the stars continued their silent dance, indifferent yet beautiful. Inside, a human man and a galaxy's mightiest queen had begun a journey that would change both their fates forever. Elias awoke to the soft glow of the chamber. The strange energy in the walls pulsed gently like a heartbeat, filling the room with a calm warmth. The events of the previous day came rushing back, the landing, the queen, and her sudden declaration. He sat up, rubbing his temples. He still could not fully comprehend what had happened. Chosen as a mate by Queen Lysera, the galaxy's mightiest ruler. It sounded impossible, and yet it was undeniably real. A quiet sound drew his attention. The chamber door slid open with a soft hiss. A young attendant entered, carrying a tray with a meal. She moved with elegance, her steps silent, her gaze respectful but curious. She placed the tray on a low table near the bed and bowed. "Breakfast, Captain Elias," she said in perfect galactic common, the universal language for interstellar communication. "Queen Lysera has requested your presence in the council chamber shortly." He had always considered himself a capable explorer, able to handle unexpected dangers and unknown situations, but this was entirely new. A human man in the court of the Zarinthian Empire, partner to a queen whose reputation alone could make entire star systems tremble. He felt both humbled and nervous. He dressed quickly in the simple uniform provided for him, a sleek suit designed for mobility rather than ceremony. It was made of materials that seemed to shimmer faintly, adjusting to his movements, and it fit him perfectly. Even in small ways, the Zarinthians had shown their attention to detail. As he followed the attendant through the palace, Elias took in his surroundings. The corridors were alive with movement, but not in the way of chaos. There was purpose in every gesture, precision in every step. Advanced beings from countless species walked side by side, discussing matters of state, commerce, or technology. Their appearances were diverse. Some had luminous skin, others multiple limbs, some appeared almost entirely mechanical, but each carried an air of authority. Elias could feel the weight of centuries of civilization in the way they moved and spoke. They arrived at the council chamber, a vast room with a high ceiling and walls that seemed to extend into the stars. Holographic projections of galaxies, star systems, and planetary networks floated above the floor, rotating slowly. Counselors of various species were seated around a long table, their attention divided between the projections and their quiet conversations. Lysera was already present at the head of the table. She stood, radiating power, and the room fell silent. When she saw Elias, she nodded, a brief gesture that spoke of reassurance and expectation. "Captain Elias Drake," she began, her voice calm yet commanding. "Today you will learn the responsibilities of your position. You are more than a guest. You are now part of the Zarinthian Empire, and your decisions will affect not only my people, but the balance of power across the galaxy. These systems are on the brink of war," she explained. "Factional conflicts, territorial disputes, and pirate activity threaten to destabilize the region. We have tried to intervene, but our resources are stretched thin. You will help us find solutions through strategy, diplomacy, and unconventional thinking." This was about leadership, judgment, and survival on a galactic scale. He felt a surge of determination. Humans may be weaker physically than some alien species, but he had learned that their greatest strength lay in creativity, adaptability, and the ability to think in unexpected ways. Over the next several hours, Elias observed the council in session. Lysera moved with precision, listening to reports, asking questions, and offering guidance. Her advisors were formidable, each representing powerful civilizations. They spoke of trade disputes, resource shortages, and political alliances, often using complex terminology that Elias struggled to follow. Yet he noticed patterns that the council seemed to overlook, small details that hinted at opportunities and risks. At one point, Lysera paused and looked at him. "Captain, what do you make of this?" She highlighted a region of the holographic projection where two factions were on the verge of open conflict. Elias studied the display. "If we position a neutral force between them and offer mediation that addresses both sides' needs, it could prevent escalation. Both factions are motivated by resource security, not ideology. If we create incentives and ensure neither feels threatened, we might stabilize the region without using force." Lysera's expression softened into a faint smile. "Interesting," she said. "You think differently than we expect. That is valuable." The session continued, and Elias contributed cautiously, gradually gaining the respect of the council. His ideas were simple but effective, based on observation and common sense rather than sheer power. By the end of the meeting, Lysera had instructed several counselors to implement his suggestions, demonstrating that even in a room of advanced minds, human insight could hold weight. After the session, Lysera led Elias through a series of private chambers. They spoke quietly as they walked. "You did well," she said. "You may not realize it, but your perspective is unique. That is why I chose you. In our culture, a mate is more than a companion. They are a partner, and equal in decisions that affect millions. You are now part of this responsibility. It only waits for courage, creativity, and the will to act." Instead, she moved swiftly, leading him through hidden corridors and stairways. As they ran, she explained in low tones. "There are factions within my empire who are threatened by your presence. They believe a human could disrupt the balance of power. We must move carefully." He had faced pirates and raiders before, but political intrigue among the stars was something entirely different. It required wit, observation, and courage. They reached a secure chamber hidden deep within the palace. Lysera activated a shield that enveloped the room, a soft blue barrier that hummed with energy. "You are safe here for now," she said. "But do not think this is a mere test of survival. It is a test of understanding. You must learn quickly if you wish to navigate the challenges ahead. The galaxy has patterns, and those patterns can be learned. Humans often see what others overlook. That is your strength. Pay attention, learn, and trust your instincts." He struggled at first. Many of the systems were unlike anything he had encountered. But slowly, his human ingenuity began to shine. He discovered shortcuts in technology, creative solutions to problems, and ways to combine alien methods with human intuition. He also spent time with Lysera, observing how she interacted with her people. She was not just a ruler. She was a strategist, a warrior, and a diplomat. Yet she treated him with respect and expectation, not pity. Their bond grew, not through words of affection, but through shared understanding, trust, and mutual recognition of ability. Elias realized that being her mate was not about romance alone. It was about partnership, a shared responsibility for the fate of countless lives. One evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking a city of glowing towers, Elias finally spoke his thoughts aloud. "I never imagined humans could be part of something like this. We're small, fragile, limited. And yet somehow, you think I can make a difference." For the first time, he understood that his life had changed irrevocably. He was no longer a mere explorer drifting through the stars. He was a participant in a galaxy's fate, a human whose actions could influence civilizations, whose decisions could shape outcomes far beyond Earth. And though he did not yet understand all the implications, he knew one thing: he would rise to the challenge, whatever it might bring. As night fell over the crystalline towers, Elias looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, dangers waited, enemies schemed, and the galaxy shifted constantly. But for the first time, he felt a spark of confidence. He was not alone. He had allies, wisdom, and a queen who believed in him. And perhaps, just perhaps, a human could shine among the stars, not just survive, but make a difference. The following morning, Elias awoke with a sense of anticipation. His mind was already turning over the lessons from the past days, the council meetings, the simulations, and Lysera's guidance. He knew that the life of an explorer, though full of challenges, had never prepared him for this. Here, in the heart of the Zarinthian Empire, he faced trials that tested not just skill, but character, wit, and courage. Lysera met him at the chamber entrance, her expression calm but intense. "Today you will undergo your first trial," she said. "It is designed not to harm, but to teach. You will see the limits of your abilities and the potential that lies beyond them. Are you ready? At the center of the hall, a series of platforms floated in midair, each glowing faintly. Holographic symbols and equations shimmered around them, indicating advanced technology far beyond human comprehension. This is the Chamber of Trials, Lysera explained. Here, we test not only strength and skill, but perception, creativity, and decision-making. Each trial will challenge you in ways that may seem impossible, but remember, adaptability and intelligence often outweigh brute force. The trial was not just a physical challenge. It demanded mental acuity, strategy, and courage. The first trial began with a holographic simulation of a collapsing star system. Energy storms swept across the planets, and the inhabitants, virtual representations of alien species, were in peril. A soft voice guided him. You must save as many lives as possible. Use the tools provided, but know that not all solutions are obvious. Using the interface, he redirected energy shields to protect vulnerable planets, coordinated rescue missions for the inhabitants, and even created a diversion to guide a rogue asteroid away from a populated world. Each action required careful timing and quick judgment. Mistakes were costly, but Elias learned quickly from each misstep, adjusting his approach in real time. When the simulation ended, the results appeared before him. Out of a possible 100 scenarios, he had successfully mitigated 78. Lysera's eyes shone with approval. Impressive, Captain. You see patterns where others see chaos. That is the gift humans bring to the galaxy. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, but they were capable of innovation, courage, and creative solutions that even advanced civilizations often overlooked. The next trial was physical. The platforms above the hall rearranged themselves into a complex three-dimensional maze. Elias had to navigate it while avoiding energy barriers, moving platforms, and shifting obstacles. At first, he stumbled, misjudging distances and timing. But as he observed the patterns and anticipated the movements, he began to move more fluidly, his human reflexes and adaptability allowing him to succeed where pure calculation might fail. By the end of the maze, he was breathless but exhilarated. Lysera met him at the exit. You see, Captain, true strength lies not in the body alone, but in the mind and spirit. You adapt, you persevere, and you find solutions where others see none. That is why you are here. Trees with glowing leaves stretched toward the sky, and streams of liquid light flowed alongside pathways of crystalline stone. The air was filled with a subtle hum of energy, almost like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Lysera appeared beside him silently. You have done well, she said. But trials are only the beginning. Out there, beyond these walls, dangers do not wait for learning. They are immediate, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. Field missions meant risk, unpredictability, and potential danger. But he felt a surge of determination. He had come too far to shrink from challenge. They boarded a swift craft designed for rapid travel, smaller than the Starhawk, but equipped with advanced shields and energy systems. Lysera piloted with precision, taking them toward a sector where intelligence reports indicated rising conflict. Elias watched the stars blur past, the speed exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. Upon arrival, they found a planet in turmoil. Two factions had clashed, each believing the other threatened their resources. Villages were damaged, trade routes blocked, and the population fearful and desperate. Lysera turned to Elias. Your task is to observe, understand, and offer solutions. Do not underestimate the complexity of alliances, Captain. Sometimes, a small action can prevent catastrophe. His human perspective, unbound by centuries of tradition or protocol, allowed him to see opportunities for compromise that the alien negotiators had overlooked. He suggested temporary resource-sharing agreements, safe zones for trade, and coordinated patrols to prevent further escalation. Lysera observed silently, her expression thoughtful, as the factions reluctantly agreed to his proposals. By the end of the day, violence had ceased, and a fragile but hopeful peace was in place. As they returned to the palace, Elias felt a new sense of purpose. He had faced the challenge, adapted, and made a difference. Humans may be small and fragile compared to other species, but their ingenuity and courage could tip the scales in unexpected ways. He realized the truth of Lysera's declaration. Humans were unique, capable of influencing outcomes far beyond what others imagined. Back at the palace, Lysera and Elias debriefed the mission. You did well, she said. Not because of force, but because of insight, creativity, and courage. These are the qualities that matter most in a universe filled with uncertainty. You have proven that humans, though young in the galactic stage, can have an impact beyond measure. But even as he celebrated this small victory, a shadow loomed on the edges of his thoughts. The factions they had stabilized were only a part of a larger web of conflict. Far beyond the systems they had visited, unseen forces watched, waiting for an opportunity. Elias knew that peace was temporary and that his trials were far from over. Yet he also understood that humans had something no one else did, the ability to act unpredictably, creatively, and decisively. That evening he stood again on the balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons cast silver light over the towers and the stars stretched endlessly above. Lysera joined him silently, her presence steady and reassuring. "You have grown, Captain," she said softly. "The galaxy is dangerous, but you have begun to prove your worth. Remember, being chosen as a mate is not a reward. It is a responsibility. You are part of something greater now. Courage, creativity, and integrity, these are what will guide you. And remember, you are not alone. Together we can face any challenge." Humans were small in the grand scheme of the galaxy, yet their spirit, ingenuity, and courage could shine brighter than even the most advanced civilizations. He turned to look at Lysera, the galaxy's mightiest queen, and realized that their partnership was more than a title. It was a bond of trust, respect, and shared purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together. And for the first time, Elias truly felt that he belonged among the stars. Days passed quickly in the Zarinthian palace. Elias had grown accustomed to the rhythms of life here, the council meetings, the training, the simulations, and the endless lessons in diplomacy and strategy. Yet, despite his successes, a shadow lingered over his thoughts. The factions they had stabilized during his first mission were only the beginning. The galaxy was full of conflict, ambition, and danger. And somewhere in the dark corners of space, enemies were watching, waiting for a chance to strike. Lysera sensed his concern as she walked beside him in the palace gardens. "You worry too much, Captain," she said, though her eyes mirrored the seriousness of the situation. "It is natural, but you must learn to use your concern as a tool, not a chain. Observing danger is important, but preparation is essential. If I made a mistake, if we misjudged them..." Red lights flashed across the hallway, and a soft alarm resonated through the building. Lysera's expression hardened immediately. "It seems our guests have grown impatient," she said grimly. Elias followed her into the council chamber, where a holographic map displayed the troubling news. Several systems near the edge of Zarinthian space were experiencing sudden outbreaks of violence. Ships belonging to multiple factions had been destroyed, and communication had been severed in some areas. It was clear that a coordinated enemy was at work. "Captain," Lysera said, her voice steady, "these attacks are not random. Someone is testing our response, probing for weaknesses. We must act quickly to prevent escalation." Patterns emerged as he analyzed the locations, timings, and targets of the attacks. "It looks like they're focusing on resource-rich systems," he observed. "They're trying to destabilize trade routes and provoke conflict among the factions. If they succeed, it will be much harder to restore order. Your perspective is fresh, unbound by tradition, and often more adaptable than our standard protocols. I want you to help devise a strategy to counter this threat." They considered multiple approaches: direct military intervention, diplomatic negotiations, and covert operations to undermine the enemy. Elias proposed a combination of tactics, leveraging the strengths of each faction while minimizing casualties and disruption. "Your approach is unconventional," Lysera said after reviewing his plan. "Many of my advisors would have chosen overwhelming force. But you see another path, one that protects lives while still achieving our goals. That is why you are invaluable." With the plan finalized, they mobilized forces across the affected systems. Ships moved swiftly through space, not just in combat formation, but as agents of diplomacy and aid. Elias oversaw coordination between factions, guiding them to cooperate despite centuries of distrust. His ability to communicate simply and effectively bridged cultural and species differences, allowing solutions to take hold faster than anyone expected. The first few days were tense. Skirmishes erupted as enemy forces attempted to disrupt the efforts, but Elias' strategy held. By focusing on prevention rather than reaction, they minimized losses and gained the trust of local populations. His human intuition, his capacity to adapt to changing circumstances, proved to be a powerful asset in a universe dominated by long-standing hierarchies and predictable behaviors. One evening, after a particularly challenging day, Lysera invited Elias to her private observation deck. From there, they could watch the systems under their protection, seeing the results of their efforts across the stars. "You have done well, Captain," she said softly. "Not because of strength or technology, but because of perception and action. Humanity has a gift for noticing what others overlook. You have reminded me why I chose you. Humans have something the galaxy often underestimates: ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. Strength is not measured by size or technology alone, but by the ability to act wisely in the face of uncertainty. You have shown these qualities, and that is why you are here, why I chose you as my mate and partner." He had always known humans were clever and resilient, but to hear it acknowledged by a being of such power was humbling and empowering at the same time. He realized that his actions, small and deliberate, could influence outcomes far beyond what he had imagined. Their moment of reflection was interrupted by an alert indicating a new development. A previously quiet system had reported sightings of enemy fleets moving rapidly toward a critical supply hub. Lysera's expression hardened. "They are escalating. This is no longer a test. They are committing to full-scale disruption. We must respond immediately. If we hesitate, we lose control." His human problem-solving skills, combined with Lysera's authority and advanced technology, created a seamless operation. Despite the complexity, the enemy forces were unable to exploit any gaps. Every move they made was anticipated and countered. By the time the crisis had passed, the enemy fleets had retreated, their plans thwarted without significant loss of life. The factions involved expressed gratitude, recognizing the wisdom of the human captain who had guided them. Elias felt a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. He had faced chaos, analyzed patterns, and implemented solutions that had protected countless lives. Lysera met him afterward, her gaze steady and approving. "You have exceeded expectations, Elias. Not through force, but through intellect, courage, and adaptability. This is the essence of leadership, and this is why humans are indispensable in the galaxy. The enemy will regroup and new challenges will arise, but you have proven yourself. You are not just a human among stars, you are a force that can influence events, save lives, and inspire cooperation. That is the essence of what it means to be my mate and partner." Each day brought new challenges, from political intrigue to sudden skirmishes in distant systems. Yet with every problem, he found ways to apply human ingenuity and intuition to achieve solutions. Through it all, Elias began to see the galaxy differently. It was not just a collection of stars and planets, but a network of lives, cultures, and relationships, each affecting the others in ways that demanded careful thought and decisive action. His role was not to dominate or conquer, but to guide, adapt, and lead with wisdom and creativity. One evening, after a long day of coordination and planning, Elias stood with Lysera on a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The twin moons cast silvery light across the crystalline towers, and the gentle hum of energy from the palace filled the air. "You have grown remarkably, Captain," Lysera said quietly. "The galaxy is dangerous, but you have proven your worth. Your actions have prevented chaos, preserved life, and strengthened alliances. You are part of something greater now. The enemy is patient and cunning, but together with courage, strategy, and trust, we can overcome anything. Humanity has a place in this galaxy, and you are proof of that." Now he was a partner to the Mightiest Queen, a strategist, and a force capable of shaping outcomes across star systems. The trials, the missions, and the lessons had strengthened him, and he understood his true potential. As the night deepened, Elias resolved to embrace every challenge ahead. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and dangerous, but he would face it with courage, intelligence, and determination. And with Lysera by his side, he knew that together they could protect countless lives, forge new alliances, and shape the future of civilizations. In that moment, Elias Drake truly felt the weight and honor of his role. He was not just a human among the stars. He was a force for change, a partner to a queen, and a beacon of the resilience, ingenuity, and spirit of humanity. And the galaxy, vast and uncertain as it was, would never be the same again. The tension in the galaxy had reached its peak. Reports of enemy movements, skirmishes at border systems, and sudden disappearances of transport convoys had spread across the communication networks. Elias Drake had grown accustomed to challenges, but this was different. The enemy was no longer testing. They were committing to a full-scale attempt to destabilize the region. Every moment counted, and the stakes were higher than ever. Lysera stood on the command deck of her flagship, the Luminous Crown, a ship that dwarfed most vessels in the sector. Its hull shimmered with energy shields, and its decks were alive with activity as officers and pilots prepared for imminent engagement. Elias stood beside her, reviewing the tactical maps that floated in holographic form before them. "They have gathered forces from multiple factions," Elias said, tracing lines on the display. "They're targeting the supply hubs first, then moving to disrupt communications and strategic positions. If we don't act quickly, their influence will spread like wildfire. Today, you will help lead the defense of these systems." Lysera would lead the fleet in direct engagement, while Elias coordinated the defense of the vulnerable systems and managed alliances with the various species under their protection. It was a delicate balance, requiring precision, foresight, and quick thinking. The first contact came swiftly. Enemy ships emerged from hyperspace near a key supply hub, their weapons primed. Elias analyzed their movements, predicting patterns based on previous intelligence. "They're expecting a direct engagement," he said. "But if we draw them toward the nebula, their sensors will be impaired. They won't see our maneuvers until it's too late." Using the dense gases of the nebula to obscure their approach, they created the illusion of weakness while positioning ships to strike from unexpected angles. When the enemy attacked, they were met with coordinated resistance from multiple directions. The advantage of strategy, human intuition, and flexibility proved decisive. Several enemy vessels were disabled before they could fire effectively, and the remaining ships were forced into retreat. But the battle was far from over. As the initial engagement concluded, new enemy fleets emerged from other sectors, coordinating attacks across multiple fronts. Communication lines were targeted, and panic threatened to spread among the populations of the affected systems. Elias took a deep breath and activated the network of allied factions he had built over the past weeks. "Listen to me," he instructed, speaking across channels in galactic common. "We've faced challenges before, and we can handle this. Position your ship strategically, protect civilians, and focus on preventing chaos rather than chasing destruction. Trust each other and follow the plan. We can hold them off." Lysera fought alongside him in the tactical space, her own maneuvers precise and calculated. Together, they created a synergy that no enemy could anticipate. The combination of Zarinthian power and human ingenuity became a force unlike any other. During a lull in the battle, Elias noticed a pattern in the enemy fleet's movements. "They're relying too heavily on predictable flanking maneuvers," he said. "If we create a decoy and draw their flagship away, we can disrupt the chain of command and cause confusion." A small fleet of unmanned ships simulated a retreat, luring the enemy flagship into a trap. As it entered a narrow sector between two moons, Zarinthian forces struck from above and below, immobilizing the vessel and breaking the enemy's coordination. Chaos spread through their ranks, and the momentum of the battle shifted. Elias coordinated reinforcements, directing ships to protect critical positions while Lysera focused on neutralizing the remaining threats. His mind worked rapidly, anticipating enemy reactions, predicting weak points, and creating contingencies in real time. Each decision saved lives and maintained control over the conflict. Hours passed, yet neither side relented. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath as the battle raged across star systems. Elias and Lysera worked tirelessly, their partnership a seamless blend of human intuition and Zarinthian power. In that moment, Elias realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength was not raw power, but the ability to think, adapt, and act decisively in moments of uncertainty. Finally, after relentless effort, the enemy forces began to retreat. Their command structure disrupted, their morale broken, they withdrew to distant systems, leaving the supply hubs and civilian populations intact. The Allied forces cheered, though exhausted from the continuous engagement. Elias exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of relief and accomplishment. He had led, strategized, and adapted. He had used his human qualities, ingenuity, perception, courage, to make a real difference on a galactic scale. And he had done so alongside the galaxy's mightiest queen, a partnership born not of tradition alone, but of trust and mutual respect. Lysera approached him as the fleets regrouped. "You have proven yourself, Elias," she said, her voice steady but warm. "Not only in strategy, but in courage and leadership. Humans often underestimate themselves, but you have shown the galaxy what your species is capable of." And that is the essence of partnership. You are no longer just a human explorer drifting among the stars. You are my mate, my partner, and a guardian of the galaxy. Humanity's presence, represented by a single captain who had risen to the occasion, became a symbol of resilience, creativity, and hope. In the following days, Elias and Lysera worked to strengthen defenses, improve communication networks, and ensure that the lessons of the battle were applied across the Empire. He advised factions on diplomacy, coordinated trade protections, and helped establish rapid response teams to handle future crises. Every action reflected human ingenuity, thoughtfulness, and courage. Despite the exhaustion from the campaign, Elias felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had grown from a stunned visitor in a powerful alien empire to a trusted advisor, strategist, and partner in the governance and protection of countless star systems. His human qualities, adaptability, intuition, and determination, had proven invaluable. One evening, as the twin moons of the Zarinthian homeworld cast silver light across the crystalline towers, Elias stood with Lysera on the palace balcony. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, a vast expanse of stars, planets, and civilizations, each connected in delicate balance. "You have done well, Elias," Lysera said quietly. "The galaxy is safer because of you. Your presence, your insight, and your courage have made a difference. Humans have a place here, not as conquerors, but as partners, problem solvers, and protectors. But now I see that humanity can shine among the stars, not just survive, but lead, guide, and protect. You are my mate, my partner, and a symbol of the potential of your species." As they stood together, watching the stars twinkle across the vast darkness, Elias understood that the galaxy was not a place to fear, but a place to influence, protect, and explore. Humanity had a role to play, and he had proven that even a single human, armed with courage, ingenuity, and determination, could make a difference among the stars. Lysera turned to him, her expression calm and confident. "The galaxy is vast, Elias, and challenges will always arise, but together we will meet them. You have shown that humans are capable of greatness. Your actions, your decisions, and your courage have changed the course of events. You are no longer just a man, you are a force that will shape the future." The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the bond forged between a human and a queen. The galaxy had been tested, challenges had been faced, and the outcome had shown that even in the vast, unpredictable expanse of space, humanity had a place and a purpose. As the night deepened, Elias Drake finally felt at peace. He had embraced his destiny, faced unimaginable challenges, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of possibilities, but he knew that with courage, intelligence, and partnership, even a human could leave an indelible mark among the stars. And standing beside him, Queen Lysera, the galaxy's mightiest ruler, affirmed it with her presence, trust, and acknowledgement. Together, they were not just allies. They were a force capable of shaping the future, defending countless lives, and showing that humanity, small and seemingly fragile, could shine brighter than even the most advanced civilizations. The universe was theirs to protect, explore, and influence. And for the first time, Elias understood that humans were not simply part of the galaxy, they were an essential part of its story.